Please welcome to the stage nationally syndicated radio host, Mr. Larry Elder.
God bless you. I want to apologize in advance. My voice is a little weak. I've been speaking for a long time over the last several days. Feel sorry for me. I got to follow that. And then after me, Mark Robinson speaks. So I hope I don't bore you. As you know, I ran for a little office in California, governor. And I'd never run for anything before. Okay, I take that back. I ran for third grade class president. And yes, I won that race, so I'm 1 out of 2. I don't recall what the agenda was, but I don't think it was climate change. I think it was more mac and cheese in the cafeteria. I've been doing talk radio now for about 30 years. Now I'm doing a show on Epic Time TV. Check it out when you get a chance. I have my documentary, the second one is now out, called Uncle Tom 2. Anybody see the first one? The second one is all about how the civil rights movement has been co-opted, hijacked by collectivists, by Marxists, by socialists, by leftists, who've turned a righteous quest for equal rights into an unrighteous quest for equal results and equal outcomes. Those are two very different things. And we name names. We talk about the socialists who trained the founders of Black Lives Matter. His name is Eric Mann. And their agenda has nothing to do with how black people were able to still move forward after slavery. After slavery, 1940, 87% of blacks lived below the federally defined level of poverty. 20 years later, 1960, that number had fallen to 47. A 40-point drop in 20 years. The 20-year greatest period of economic expansion for black people in the history of this country. This is before the civil rights legislation of 64, 65, the Voting Rights, Open Housing Act, and mostly before even the Brown versus Board of Education. Why? Because at the time, it was rare for a black child to enter the world without a father married to the mother. In 1965, 25% of black people entered the world without a father married to the mother. Now that number is 70%. And forget about elder, because I'm a right-winger, right? They called me the black face of white supremacy when I ran for office. Barack Obama said a kid raised without a father is 5 times more likely to be poor and commit crime, 9 times more likely to drop out of school, 20 times more likely to end up in jail. Now the question we ought to be asking ourselves is, how do we go from having 25% of black kids entering the world without a father married to the mother to 70% now? Clearly you're not asking me to believe that America is more racist now than it was in 1965. Now 25% of white kids enter the world without a father married to the mother. 40% of all kids in America today enter the world without a father married to the mother. Nearly half of Hispanic kids do. What happened? In the mid-60s, Lyndon Johnson launched a so-called war on poverty. Since then, we spent over $22 trillion, and poverty has won. What happened is we've incentivized women to marry the government. We've incentivized men to abandon their financial and moral responsibility. And we don't talk about that enough on our side. My father never knew his biological father. He left home when he was 13 years old. He was essentially homeless at the age of 13. And my dad said he did anything he could. He picked up trash. He cleaned out barns. He was in Athens, Georgia, Jim Crow South, left school at the age of 13 at the beginning of the Great Depression. I defy you to find very many people who had a hand dealt like that. My father was a lifelong Republican. He joined the military, became a Marine, World War II, stationed on Guam. He was in charge of cooking for the colored soldiers, staff sergeant. Got out of the military, went back to Chattanooga where he met and married my mom to get him a job as a short order cook. And he was told, pardon the language, restaurant after restaurant after restaurant, we don't hire niggers. Went to an unemployment office. The lady says, you went through the wrong door. My dad goes out to the hall, sees colored only, goes through that door to the very same lady who sent him out. He came up to my mother and said, this is nonsense. I'm going to LA where I was before the war. My dad was a Pullman porter before the war, traveled all around the country, and was shocked when he went to California, Los Angeles, which is where I'm from. You could walk through the front door of a restaurant and get served. My dad always had cans of tuna and crackers with him because he never knew in the South whether he would get a meal. So he made a mental note, maybe someday I'll relocate to LA. gets out of the military, can't get a job, comes to LA, walks around, and he's told, you don't have references. My dad said, I need references to make ham and eggs? He even offered to work for free for 2 weeks for him to get a reference. They wouldn't do that. So he was treated the same way right after the war in LA as he was in Chattanooga. Maybe they're a little more polite about it. My dad worked 2 full-time jobs. He went to an unemployment office. Lady says, I don't have anything. He said, what time do you open? She says, 9. What time do you close? She said, 5. My dad said, I'll be in the chair until you find something. Sat there a whole day, nothing. Came back the next day. She calls him up, says, I have something. I don't know whether you're going to want it. My dad said, of course I'm going to want it. I'm starting a family. What is it? She says, the job cleaning toilets with Nabisco brand bread. My dad did that for 10 years. Took a second full-time job cleaning toilets at another bread company called Barbara Ann Bread for 10 years. Cooked for a family on the weekend to make additional money because he wanted my mom to be a stay-at-home mom, which she was for my brothers and me until the youngest of us was in middle school. And my dad went to night school 2 or 3 nights a week to get his GED. The man never slept. But he believed in America. He always told my brothers and me the following: hard work wins. You get out of life what you put into it. Larry, you cannot control the outcome, but you are 100% in control of the effort. Before you moan and groan and complain about what somebody did to you or said to you, go to the nearest mirror, look at it, and say to yourself, what could I have done to change the outcome? And finally, he said this: no matter how hard you work, no matter how good you are, sooner or later, bad things are going to happen. My father was a church goer. I scratched that. He was a church goer when he was younger. My dad told me that the pastor where he grew up had the biggest house, nicest cars, nicest clothes, and that the entertainment in the area was the affairs the pastor was having with other women. And so my dad said he was turned off from church. My pastor is Pastor Jack Hibbs in California, Chino Hills. And Pastor Hibbs tells me that the misbehavior of so many pastors has turned off so many Americans from going to church. Pastors have a moral responsibility to be beyond reproach, and unfortunately, a lot of them are not. But that did not turn my father away from God. He still believed in God. He believed in America. He was a patriot. He believed in hard work. He believed in entrepreneurship. And all of these values are under attack right now. We talk about this in my second part of my documentary, Uncle Tom 2. We've gone from a belief in family, a belief in church, a belief in patriotism, a belief in entrepreneurship, to an organization called Black Lives Matter, whose co-founders are self-described trained Marxists. Marx was an atheist who wanted to dethrone God. He hated religion. He thought it was the opiate of the masses. And on the website of Black Lives Matter, until some of us complained about it, they attacked the nuclear intact family as an artificial European policy. And of course, Marx hated capitalism, hated entrepreneurship, hated the private ownership of property. So every single thing that made blacks still able to move forward, despite Jim Crow, despite KKK, despite lynchings, church, family, God, entrepreneurship, patriotism are all under attack right now. And that's what's at stake in our midterms, and that's what's at stake in 2024. And we have to take this country back. I just want to say something real quickly about our current occupant in the White House. This is a man who's referred to people who support Donald Trump as semi-fascists. How you can say something like that with a straight face and not even have people on the left criticize him is beyond me. Do you know what fascism is? Socialism is when government owns means of production. Fascism is when the government allows you to own means of production but tells you how to produce. What do you call it when a governor, as mine did in California, Gavin Newsom, tells auto manufacturers, effective 2035, you will not be able to sell new gasoline-powered cars in my state? What word do you call that? What word do you call it when you pick up a pen and suddenly you relieve the debt of millions of people, insulting all the people that took college loans and paid them off, and insulting all the people who never went to college in the first place? Nancy Pelosi, a year before, even said he lacked the legal authority to do it. He did it anyway. What word do you call that? What word do you call it when under Obamacare, he mandated that every man, woman, and child purchase health care insurance, whether they wanted it, whether they could afford it, whether they needed it, and if you didn't do it, you faced a tax or a penalty. What word is that? But we're semi-fascists. What they've done is divide us by race and by class. And that's what the Democrats have done. And a big, big problem in our country occurred when Barack Obama got elected. Remember the promise. Even people in this room who never voted for him, nevertheless pulled for him after he got elected. He walked into the Oval Office after winning a little more than 52% of the vote with a 70% approval rating. How's that happen? Because so many people said, okay, I don't want socialized medicine. I don't want taxes raised. I don't want soft on national security, but at least he'll stop the nonsense that America is systemically racist. And he did the opposite. When Obama was running in 2008, he had an interview on 60 Minutes. He hadn't yet caught Hillary on the nomination side, but he was catching, otherwise they wouldn't have had him on. And Steve Croft, the correspondent, said, Senator, if you don't win, will it be because of race? And I said to myself, let's see how he answers this question. I know how Al Sharpton would have answered it, who ran for president. I know how Jesse Jackson would have answered it, who ran for president. Let's see how this man answers it. Is he going to tell the truth, that race is no longer a major problem in America? Is he going to tell the truth? And he did. He said, no. If I don't win, it will be because I have not articulated a vision that the American people can embrace. I said, hallelujah. Which is why when he walked into the Oval Office, he had a 70% approval rating. What did he do? Where do I start? The Cambridge police acted stupidly. You remember that? His good friend, Henry Louis Skip Gates, who's a Harvard professor, they've known each other for years. Gates is on vacation, comes home to Cambridge where he lives, not exactly the hood, just saying. And he had forgotten his door key, so he and the driver broke into his own house. A neighbor called 911, did not recognize him belonging to the house, which is exactly what you want your neighbor to do. A white cop shows up very politely, sees this man inside the house, and asks him to come out and show ID. And instead of doing so, Gates said, I'll come out if your mama tells me to come out. Now, what Obama should have done and should have said is, you know, last night I had a conversation with my friend Henry Louis Skip Gates, known him for years. I said, Skip, one of the reasons we're having so many of these problems with these young black men being shot, being injured by police officers is that they are not complying. Virtually every single one of these high-profile deaths, whether it's George Floyd or Eric Gardner, we can go down the list, had they complied, we would not be having this conversation. So I told Gates, I said, Skip, you're a role model for crying out loud. You're a Harvard tenured professor. Knock it off. Comply. Send that message to young black men that they ought to comply so that a regular stop does not go to DEFCON 1. Instead, what did Obama say? The Cambridge police acted stupidly. Are you kidding me? And it ticked off officers all around the country. But that was just the beginning. He had Al Sharpton in the White House over 70 times. Al Sharpton is one of the biggest race card hustlers in the world. Remember how he became famous by lying, claiming a white man raped Tawana Brawley? Complete, total fraud. To this day, he won't apologize. Obama said, racism is in our DNA. Really? The first time Gallup asked white people if they would vote for a black president was in the 1950s. Only 38% said yes. Today, only 4% said they would not. DNA doesn't change. How do those numbers change? Obama said, we have a place, giving a speech before the United Nations, we have a place called Ferguson. So no, America is not perfect. No, America is not perfect, but Ferguson was a lie. Michael Brown did not have his hands up, did not say don't shoot. His best friend lied. And as a result, you have all of this carnage. The police were accused falsely of engaging in deadly force against a man named Michael Brown, who had just committed a strong-arm robbery and once again did not comply. There was a website called policemag.com. Self-described very liberal people versus self-described liberal people were asked the following question. In 2019, how many unarmed black men did the police kill? Unarmed black men. Half of the self-described very liberal said the police killed 1,000 unarmed black men in 2019. 8% said they killed 10,000. What about the regular old liberal? 39% of self-described liberal people thought the police killed 1,000 unarmed black men in 2019. 5% thought they killed 10,000. The number, according to the Washington Post database, 12. This is why we have this situation. We had 4 months of riots after the death of George Floyd. However you feel about what Derek Chauvin did, there is zero evidence that he was motivated because of George Floyd's race. In fact, the lead prosecutor was a black man. And in his opening statement, he took pains to say the police in general are not on trial. The Minneapolis police as a whole is not on trial. This individual is on trial, and he never argued that whatever Derek Chauvin did to Floyd was done because of his race. And Derek Chauvin was never charged with a hate crime. Yet we had 4 months of protests, violent protests, in cities all across America. 25 people at least killed, it might have been more than that, 2,000 police officers injured, $2 billion in damages, all because of a false assumption that George Floyd was killed because of his race. And the Democrats have pushed this and pushed this and pushed this in order, why? They want to get 13% of black people angry and believing that we Democrats wear the white hat in the social justice issue, and these dastardly Republicans over there, they wear the black hat. And that's what's going on in this country. And we need to stop it. It's nonsense. We need to stop it. Why is it that Haitians are lining up just for a shot to get into America? Because America is systemically racist? Why is it the Nigerian Americans per capita have higher net worth than virtually any other Americans, including white Europeans? How is that if we're systemically racist? It's nonsense. I want to end by saying something about my mom. If she was watching, she'd be upset if I left her out. One of the reasons I'm the way I am and have such confidence is because of my mother, my father. My mother always said, no one can make you feel inferior without your permission. Thank you. I took a course in, quote, African-American literature. By the way, you never hear me use the term African-American. I'm an American who is black. I'm just telling you what the name of the course was. African-American literature. And we read a poem by a guy named County Cullen. And it goes like this. While riding through old Baltimore, so small and full of glee, I saw a young Baltimorean keep a looking straight at me. Now, I was young and very small, and he was no whit bigger, and so I smiled. But he poked out his tongue and called me nigger. I saw the whole of Baltimore from May until September. Of all things that happened there, that's all that I remember. Well, the teacher was upset. She was black. Most of my classmates were black. They were upset. I was upset. The teacher talked about how this is going to permanently stain his psyche. He's always going to think of himself as a second-class citizen. He'll never feel fully embraced as part of the American family. I go home, and I knew my mom was going to have a different reaction to the poem, but I wasn't sure what it was going to be. I walk into the kitchen. My mother's stirring a big pot of greens and frying chicken, my favorite. I know it's a stereotype, but I got to fess, bro. Come on, give it up. Who doesn't like fried chicken? I said, Mom, we read a poem in class, and I want to read it to you and get your reaction. She said, go ahead. I said, while riding through old Baltimore, so small and full of glee, I saw a young Baltimorean keep a looking straight at me. Now, I was young and very small, and he was no whit bigger, and so I smiled. But he poked out his tongue and called me nigger. I saw the whole of Baltimore from May until September. Of all the things that happened there, that's all that I remember. My mom took the spoon out of the pot, hit it on the side, and said, Larry, what a darn shame he let something like that spoil his vacation. How many wings do you want? May God bless you. May God continue to bless the United States of America. Thank you so much. We have a country to save. We have a country to save. We have a country to save.